Ready.
Hello, rockers, rollers, and metal maniacs. It's the Meister from Brews and Tunes. Cheers. I'm very excited today. I'm chatting with the one and only Mr. Ed Gage, who, of course, is man of all trades, jack of all trades, songwriter, singer, guitarist, bassist, actor, stuntman, martial artist, kickboxer, and new dad. I don't even know how you have time to sleep, but Ed, thank you so much for joining me today. How you doing?
No, I'm doing great. Thank you for having me.
Excellent. Yeah, very cool. Yeah, I'm excited to chat with you. So I guess first off, I wanted to ask you about, and I think it was originally released, I believe, in 2021. But I think it was just recently re-released. But you did as part of your solo career, you did a cover of a killer cover, by the way, if I may add, of AC/DC's Dirty Deeds Done Dirt Cheap, one of my favorite songs ever. And you did it with two of my favorite artists ever, Mr. Steve Grimmett, the late Steve Grimmett, and of course, John Gallagher of Raven. So I wanted to ask you about that, how that came to be, because I mean, you guys kill that. You kill it. It's so good.
Man. Thanks, man. I really appreciate that. So the story behind that was, I had known Steve and John prior to recording and all that. Like, it was kind of like one of those fan turned friends kind of a thing.
Nice.
Like a fan and, favorite artist turned friends. And so it was an honor because, whoops, sorry, dropped something. Because, it was definitely something pretty big for me because I had grown up with both bands and, and I was very fond of the new wave of British heavy metal movement. So, of course, that was like why. But, especially, with the history they both have, Raven being signed with Atlantic and, being like Metallica getting their start with them on the Kill 'Em All for One tour.
Yeah.
And that's for Steve, for Grim Reaper, they appeared in Beavis and Butthead. They were signed with RCA, and it was. And then it's funny how I discovered Grim Reaper as a kid. It goes way back to 2002, 2003. I heard See You in Hell in a movie called CKY, and the same clip was also shown in Jackass, the TV show. And it was a video where Bam Margera was pranking his dad and digging a hole in the backyard and covering it with a bunch of leaves. So when his dad was mowing the lawn, he would fall into it. And just as he falls into the hole, it's the chorus of See You in Hell. And I was just aside from laughing at that, as time went by and I would watch it over and over again, I'm like, that's a catchy song. I wonder who this is. And I looked it up and I was hooked on Grim Reaper the second I discovered them.
Yeah, great.
And as for Raven, Raven, I was fond, same, like I said, I was fond of the new wave of British heavy metal movement. So I was discovering bands like Iron Maiden, Saxon, and all the bands from that movement. And then Raven, I discovered, but then how John and I became friends through social media first. First I became friends with Steve and John through social media. John was because I had started a fan page to Paul Di'Anno's Killers and Battlezone, actually. Because I was very influenced by Paul Di'Anno. He was one of my influences as to why I started singing, actually.
Cool.
And so I started a page and, I started getting old former members from the Killers and Battlezone involved because John was in Killers for, I think he told me only 2 weeks, but he had recorded an album with them, a live recording with them.
Okay.
So I had asked him, hey, would you want to be a part of the page, maybe do if you have any posts. He's like, oh, I actually was only in the band for 2 weeks, but that's pretty cool you're doing that. I'm like, oh, okay, no problem. But do you have any stories? And he told me some stories, which was pretty cool and all that. But then, yeah, so I got other guys that had been in the that were key members of Battlezone and Killers to join the page. And then I eventually got Paul himself to help be more involved with running the page and all that. And Paul and I became friends as well. So that meant a lot to me as well. And it's funny because he was watching a TV show recently that I'm going on different subjects. He watched a TV show recently that I worked on. So I was telling him a little bit about that. But anyways, going back to the topic with John and Steve, I first met John in person in 2013. Yeah, 2013. It's been 10 years since we first met in person. I think we first made contact in 2012. But then I attended his show and all that, and I told him like, yeah, we've spoken on the internet a few times. I'm Ed Gage. He's like, oh yeah, yeah, I remember you.
Oh, nice.
And then as time went by, I every time Raven was in, every time I've always told John, anytime that Raven is in my area, I will be there to support, and I have and so we would like I would see them like for years on end, on and off, and then I remember by the time 2018 came around, I had already been working, in my career in Hollywood, and I already had appeared in Westworld at the time, the TV series.
Oh, cool.
And I also had landed a lead role in a music video for Cypress Hill. So I was really, starting to do well with like, acting out here. So like I remember I went to go see Raven at the Whiskey in 2018. And I remember right when I was looking for them, I messaged John, am I you around? And then like I went to like go see up the strip to see if maybe I'll run into them because I was just killing time. But then just as I was walking back to the Whiskey, I see John and Mark, I think, coming out of this pizza joint that was like not right down the street from the Whiskey A Go-Go. And I just smiled, and then I went up behind them and I tapped them on both opposite sides of the shoulders so they could look to the side. I stood right in between. I was just being I was just clowning around. I was just like, "Hey guys," and they were like, "Oh my God!" And it was funny because I know Mark didn't have like social media or anything. So like when he saw that he had been seeing what I'm doing, and John always shows him what I'm doing, it was pretty cool. And they've been very supportive of what I do, which means the world to me. Mark and John Gallagher, they're the greatest guys that I've gotten to know, and I'm happy to be friends with them. And Mark, he's a great guitar player.
Oh,
But
yeah.
anyways, so with Steve Grimmett, I eventually had met Steve the same year when Grim Reaper was playing at the Whiskey A Go-Go, like same venue, ironically enough. And I remember Steve yeah, I think it was like because I know that Grim Reaper would always draw a crowd, especially at the Whiskey. So would do 2 nights of shows. So I think I went, I don't remember if it was the second or the first night I went. It might have been the second. But I remember afterwards, like I saw Steve and he said to me, "Hey, I know you." And I'm like, "Yeah, yeah, we're friends on Facebook. I'm Ed Gage." He's like, "Ed, yes. How are you, mate?" I'm like, "I'm great. I'm great. How are you?" He's like, "I'm doing good, buddy. It's good to finally meet you." I'm like, "Yeah, yeah. Like, can we get a picture together?" He's like, "Yeah, of course." And he was so sweet and genuine from the start. And you don't meet many people that were like Steve, He was definitely a rare out of the bunch, especially, what I loved about him, he didn't care. He wasn't in this for, the fame or, like the money or anything like that, from what I could tell, I don't want to like say too much, but like I could tell that he really, really adored and loved his fans. And he really, you know, he never like took what he had for granted. He embraced everything that he had, especially with his fans.
Yeah.
And he was just such an overall genuine human being. But anyway, so what happened was like I was supposed to see like so in 2019 I had wanted to see Steve again because they were in the area, but I was doing a commercial for Gucci eyewear and shooting not far from there actually. I had gone I had to like we had to film at what used to be Amoeba Records, which was a well-known
Oh,
store.
yeah.
The original location it used to be at. They moved to a new location. It's not the same anymore. But so I didn't get a chance to see him. And then in 2020, like literally about a couple weeks, I think before, COVID hit, I was at a venue that I was helping out, working on a music video shoot for at a venue that I ironically performed at is somewhere in Santa Ana. And I saw a flyer of Grim Reaper on there. I was like, and I said to him, I'm like, oh, I had no idea you're going to be playing Santa Ana. I'm gonna definitely come and support you when you guys are in town. And he's like, yeah, buddy, it'll be great. But then COVID hit just like that. So, I during the pandemic, I was helping out with a friend's podcast. We were interviewing, celebrity figures that we had known. I was a co-host for that show for about a year and a half or so.
Okay.
And then I got busy, because everything started getting lifted and all that, and I was getting busy with work again. And so, but anyways, so what happened was, COVID had hit, and then like I didn't tell my bandmates, my guitarist and my drummer from Buffalo, Nick Moran and Derek Sedota. I wanted to surprise them that John and Steve were going to be involved.
Nice.
So I approached Steve, well, at first I told my bandmates, let's do a studio cover of Dirty Deeds Down Dirt Cheap. And they're like, yeah, I'd be down. And so I think just as we had like gotten like a demo track recorded and all that, just so we could at least get the ball rolling and like have something for them to like jam along to and all that. Then I approached Steve first and I said, hey, me and the guys in my band were doing a studio cover of Dirty Deeds Done Dirt Cheap. And honestly, the first person I thought of to get a guest appearance was you. And you've got a phenomenal voice. I've been a big fan of your work for so long, and I really appreciate that you've supported me in my endeavors since we first interacted. And I wouldn't want anything more than to have you involved. So would you be interested? He's like, yeah, buddy, I'd love to. Let's do it. And just like he like didn't question, he didn't ask questions or anything. He didn't like, it was great. He was on board from the second. And then I then approached John and I told him, yeah, Steve's gonna be, I told him I haven't told my bandmates yet, but Steve's gonna be a guest vocalist on it. I actually want to surprise them that you and Steve are involved. And they're like, yeah. And they were all on it, they were all on board just like that.
Right on.
And I think, it was taking a little bit of time. And I told the guy that was mixing it, don't tell my bandmates that Steve and John are involved. But I think it was taking a little bit of time. But then I then broke the news to them, like I said, but I know it's taking a little time, but I'm just gonna tell you guys now. John Gallagher of Raven and Steve Grimmett are gonna be recording it on it with us. And they were like, "Are you serious?" I'm like, "Yeah." Just and they were like, they were ecstatic. Which,
Oh, I bet.
my guitarist Derek, he's based both, but Derek and Nick are based out of Buffalo, New York. They're both phenomenal musicians, and Derek went through a lot before, like he jumped on board with my band, but he at the same time he had always, been really cool to me, even before, I started getting somewhere as a musician and as a movie actor too. But like even long before that, he was always cool to me. He was always supportive. He was always nice to me because like I dealt with a lot of haters and a lot of BS in the Buffalo, New York music scene and like the Florida music scene too. And I'm not the kind of person that likes drama or BS. So when people would drag me into some bullshit,
Right.
yeah, of course. But like anyways, but so I brought Derek. I told Derek, I said, you deserve it, man. You're a great guitar player. You're a great dude. You got potential. And honestly, if you get an op get an oppor- if you ever get an opportunity, I told him if you ever get an opportunity to play with somebody bigger than me, I won't be mad. In fact, I want you to.
Cool.
So yeah, like what happened was we then like recorded and then I think we finally got like a digital release in February. And I remember like we got a lot of great feedback too. People are saying the production sounded professional, it sounds great. And then we did like a music video, where because we were all spread out. So like, we did a music video like where based on like our locations, in August of 2021. And my wife appeared in the video. And then also, I filmed here in LA, and then my bandmates, my Derek and Nick filmed out in New York, and Steve and John filmed out in the areas they were at in the UK. Because I know John flies back and forth, and all that. I don't know if he wants me telling anybody that.
Right.
Anyways, so what happened was, yeah, we had recorded it. We did a digital release, and then 2022, was Grim Reaper was scheduled to play like a indoor metal fest in LA in November of 2022. And here comes, like the part that, really hurt the most was,
Oh,
Steve's
yeah.
passing. And I was visiting New York at the time, and my brother and I had just gotten out of the movie theater. And yeah, this past August. And just as I opened my phone, like the very first post, nobody had posted anything yet. It was either Abaddon or Mantis of Venom and Venom Inc. had posted about it. And it was
Mm.
a picture of Steve, and they're saying, please don't let it be true. Rest in peace, Steve. And
Yeah.
I said, I'm not seeing anything. Can somebody tell me that this is real? And then I think they showed like a screenshot of his brother posting about it. And like I just I didn't know what to think. It really
That was
that
brutal.
one hurt. His passing hurt. And
Yeah.
honestly, I remember I had messaged Derek and Nick and I said Steve Grimmett has just passed away and they were like, "What?" And it really sucked because, it was just like here, like and because what really meant a lot was when I told him, yeah, it's gonna be great to see you when you're in LA and we can catch up and all that. And he said, yeah, buddy, and if you'd like to, I'd love to have you come up and sing "See You in Hell" with me. And I was like,
Oh, wow.
that would be such an honor. I said, dude, I don't know what to say. Thank you. And I have the screenshot of him asking me that, and I will never get rid of that. That was like a very kind of like a very sentimental moment for me
Yeah,
that he
definitely.
asked that. Like for somebody to ask you that is an honor, but
Oh, yeah.
the universe unfortunately had other plans. And when I went to go to that show, because I wanted to see Steve, but also Ripper Owens as well, because I love Ripper's
Oh,
music and
yeah.
what contributed to Judas Priest. So, but it felt very bittersweet, knowing that Steve wasn't going to be there to perform. But I remember like just like the whole like I remember like everybody in like the metal scene, like was posting about Steve Grimmett, that how they loved his music, whether if they had met him or they had not met him or if they knew him.
Yeah.
And I'm really grateful and I will forever be grateful for, having at least some part of his legacy in a
Yeah.
way.
Yeah, he was so
And
influential and just yeah, like you said, he was just a great guy. I mean, I never met him in person, but and it's funny. I don't think I've ever shared this at least on in this forum before. So it's funny because I actually you mentioned that you saved a screenshot. I did the same thing. So
yeah.
I had an interview lined up with him that Saturday that he died, the week
Oh,
he died.
jeez.
And so yeah, the same thing. It was like just gut wrenching, just like, oh my God. Again, yeah. So I have the last message from him because I was confirming that, and I was direct. The cool thing was I was dealing directly with him rather than a manager or PR. And I mean, it was him,
Yeah. Yeah.
back and forth. And he was so friendly, he was so down to earth and so nice. So yeah, like, yeah, here's a raise a glass to Steve Grimmett.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. I don't drink, but
yeah.
I'll raise the hand in the air for
And
that.
I
But
and I I think he did such a great job on your song. I mean, it just yeah, it's and he and John together, it's so cool to hear. And they really nailed they really kind of captured the essence of Bon Scott, but in their own
oh,
kind of
absolutely.
their own way, which I thought was really cool. And yeah, so yeah, anybody watching this, you got to check it out. Go
Yeah,
on.
and just to make a note, the Angus scream at the end is John.
Oh, nice. Oh, cool.
It's like
I
I
was gonna
told
ask you that.
it was John. Like I said to him, I said, John, I think you need to do the Angus scream at the end. He's like, okay.
Nice. Yeah.
But
Very
no,
cool.
like everybody like, like they did such a phenomenal job. Everybody like brought something, to the table in that recording. And then like the guitar solo, the first half is Derek, and then the hammer-on part is me.
Mm.
Like because like that way, like Derek and I, like what we like to do is like we kind of like share solos, kind of like Iron Maiden and Priest, they
Oh,
share
okay.
solos and
Yeah.
all that. So that's kind of what we did and all that. And what was but yeah, and then like I remember about a month after John had passed, I then went to go see Raven in Santa Ana, which is like about 20-30 minutes away from me around there.
Mm.
And like yeah, every time I walk into the show, just for them to like know who I am and to have a friendship with them, it's a great feeling. And I remember like even like when they were performing on stage, like John shouted out to me saying, "Everybody, rocker and movie actor, Mr. Ed Gage." And I was
Oh,
like,
nice.
oh, I kind of covered my face because I was like, oh, you guys are I mean, like, it's great, just to have that friendship with, John and the guys, and Mike, the drummer of Raven, he's a phenomenal drummer,
Oh,
very,
yeah.
very talented, especially if he's with Fear Factory, he's a monster
Yeah.
drummer.
Yeah. Yeah. That guy's a
And
beast.
but yeah, and he's a wrestling fan too. And I did a movie called Pact of Vengeance with two AEW wrestlers, Peter Avalon and Diamante. And Peter not long ago had a match with Chris Jericho.
Oh,
And so like yeah, I was talking and like I think they had just done something with Chris Jericho as well, because Fozzy.
yeah. Yeah.
And they yeah, like so like Mike and I, we were talking like about, the movie that I did. And I said, yeah, I got to fight Peter in the movie. And yeah, I remember he actually kicked me in the stomach. It
Oh,
was because like the thing is wrestlers will go all out, when it comes
yeah.
to doing fights and all that, especially if they want to sell it. But yeah, like a couple of my friends got to fight Roddy Piper in a movie.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, and I remember like they told me like Roddy would go all out and all that. So, yeah. But anyways, yeah, so like, I got to like catch up with them and all that. And I remember like I was just even telling like John, like Steve's passing really hit me hard. And they're like, yeah, it sucked for all of us, to hear that. And I said, we lost a great. I'm like, yeah, we did. And but yeah, that recording like was such a it will definitely be, so far, because I know I haven't recorded a whole lot because, like I'm always getting, offered, different film opportunities and all that. So it's very, it's a lot to, try to balance as much as you
I was going
can.
to ask you about, I was curious about how you balance the music career with the acting career. It's got to be tricky.
It's very tricky actually, because sometimes like working on movie sets, you could work long hours. And then if you got like the day off the next day, like 'cause some movies productions can work 12 to 16 hours.
Yeah.
So yeah, so like, sometimes the next day you'll just be like, want to take like a bit of a breather and all that. But like, especially doing stunt work too, or anything that's very physically demanding, I mean, the next
Right.
day, because like, I mean, we're not machines, you got to let the body recover.
Yeah.
And like, but like, but yeah, I do what I can to like balance the two as well, but it's been like a couple years since I've been in, I haven't recorded actually since believe it or not, 30 Deeds. And
Oh,
like, well, so what happened was after Steve's passing, an independent label had reached out to me and wanted to do like a limited edition release of the vinyl and like do like a memorial vinyl with artwork of him inside it.
nice.
And we got to do that. And there's still copies available too,
Oh,
since
good.
it's a
Yeah.
limited edition.
Yeah. I
And
need to check those out.
honestly, like to have, I mean, like it's sad that, in some way it kind of took his passing just to get it some attention, but in some way, like even though it's sad that it had to take that, but in some way I like to look at it, maybe in some way it's Steve passing the torch down to me, like saying,
Yeah.
you're one of us now, take the torch and run with it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
maybe that's the way I try to look at it. Because I'm one of the young guys in this genre, so I
Yeah.
just turned 30, so it's like, it's our generation that's got to keep it going. So
Right.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah. Yeah. So yeah, you got to get recording because you
Yeah.
got some killer stuff. Yeah. Yeah. I
Definitely
mean,
want to definitely want to do some more. I'd like to bring some more collaborators, and I don't want everybody to know me as the guy that collaborates with everybody. But I will say, John is interested in doing more recordings with us as a bass player when he doesn't have commitments with Raven. Of course, I wouldn't take that from him or,
yeah.
try to tell him, no, 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 don't commit to me. Like, I'm not like that. But yeah, but no, like I'd always let him make sure that he fulfills his commitments with Raven first before he does anything with us. And honestly, yeah, like it's just like I've kind of like with the music and all that, it's just kind of like around the time I had finished recording Dirty Deeds, I had like a bit of an experience. And it's been like 2 years since it happened, but like I kind of like dealt with, it was kind of like if you're familiar with the Rocky movies, I kind of dealt with like a Rocky and Tommy Gunn kind of a thing. Me and my friend, we brought this guy in. I'm not gonna drop names. I'm gonna be the professional, but we brought this guy in. We gave him some of our resources, in music and film, and then he took advantage of that, did a 180 on us, and all that, and then he just started to go, and it's like, dude, like without us, you wouldn't have had these opportunities. And then he did like a 180 on us and started bad mouthing, me to certain musicians, and then when I was putting him in his place because he was, acting out of line, he then went as far as to saying stuff like, people in the LA music scene think that you're a joke. Your favorite musicians fucking hate you. And I'm like, oh, really? Okay. So it's just, he's a guy that likes to put on that front like he's a tough guy when, it's like, yeah. And it's just, I don't, if that's really, and, it's not so much that what he said that bothered me. It's more or less like, if this is what the industry is about,
Yeah.
I don't want to cater to people like this,
Yeah. Yeah. Life's too
and
short
and
for that
it's
kind
not
of
just
bullshit.
people in the industry, it's people in the scene too that, are not just like people that are musicians, but people that are a part of the scene that like to create that unnecessary, psychological, well, not, well, it's just like I don't want to be like, it's like a part of me like I want to get back and recording and writing and all that, but it's like at the same time, it's like I don't want to cater to these, toxic kind of people, It's
Right.
like it's sad because, I like me of all people, not having a wanting to like do what I enjoy the most, because I have a feeling that it caters to people like that. It's like it's a really shitty feeling, but I mean, at the same time, it's like, in the end of the day, why the fuck should I care what they say?
Yeah. Yeah. Do your
But
thing.
yeah, but like, so like in some way, but like, cause I then released, a few months later, I just had like my additional recordings that I had never released and all that, which turned into my EP, Moth to the Flame.
Yeah.
And
Great stuff.
yeah, and that like, I had released in the summer of 2021, I think right before I dropped the music video of Dirty Deeds. And like one of the songs on that EP also became the B-side for that Dirty Deeds vinyl limited edition, actually.
Hmm.
But Moth to the Flame, is very special for me because it was a recording I did with Rick Fox from Steeler, who was also in the early formation of Wasp.
Yeah. Yeah.
For those who aren't familiar with what Steeler is, I'm sure most metalheads are familiar. Steeler was the band that was Yngwie Malmsteen's first band, and it was Ron Keel's first band too.
Yeah. That's
And
right.
so Rick and I, like, we had became friends in January 2018 after we had met at NAMM because we had a couple of mutual friends actually. And I remember Rick and I became friends because he then needed somebody to join in like for a jam band that he was doing for a memorial show, like a benefit show at the Viper Room
Oh,
actually in
cool.
March 2018. And he said he needed a couple of guys that could do a couple of AC/DC songs. And I was one of the first to jump and raise my hand saying I could do it. And then he messages me personally and says, Ed, can you do this? I'm like, yes, I can. I once was in an AC/DC tribute band, actually. He's like, okay, I'm trusting you in this. So yeah, we did Sin City and Whole Lotta Rosie that
Oh,
night,
right on.
actually, which was great. And at the Viper Room too, which was amazing.
I bet.
Rick
Yeah.
and I kept like a good friendship ever since. And I remember May 2018, that same year, I had appeared in well, because like Rick and I, we became like that, just like that, because we really were able to relate on things and all that. And I remember like, even after we did a show, he and his wife invited me over and, they cooked some really delicious food and all that. They were great. They always, were very welcoming whenever I came over to where they lived at the time.
Nice.
And unfortunately, his wife passed away last year.
Oh, I'm sorry.
And, so I really feel terrible for him that, nobody should have to deal with that.
Yeah, that's
But
true.
anyways, what happened but so with Rick, after I had appeared in Westworld and the episode had aired in May 2018, 5 years ago,
Hmm.
I got like a lot of feedback through social media. Like I woke up the next morning like bombarded like with people saying, "Holy shit, congratulations, this is awesome!" And I was some people were saying like, "I thought that was you. I'm a big fan of that show." And then like out of nowhere, I was like seeing messages from people that I hadn't heard from in years, like going back to like years from like when we were kids and all that. And then almost like people were trying to indirectly ask me for favors, and I'm like
Yeah.
you didn't acknowledge you haven't acknowledged me in how many years? And it's like you want me to help you. It's like I see what you're doing. It's like
Yeah.
I'm the what kind of person I'm willing to help people that I feel are deserving of it. And and I can see if they're deserving of it, but I can see the difference between people that are deserving of it and then people that just are opportunists. And I've dealt with it, more than I should have. And the thing is, like it's like I was venting out about it to Rick and saying, there's just people that haven't acknowledged me in so many years, and now all of a sudden they want a piece of the action. And it's like I can't stand people like that. And he said to me, when people see that you're making something of yourself and you're doing well, they're going to have a dangerous attraction to you, like a moth to the flame. And I looked at him and I said, Rick, we got to write about that.
Yeah.
So, and so like I gave him like concept ideas and all that. I was at his house where I was giving him like concepts of like this and that, and then he was just writing it down, and then he helped write the lyrics and all that, and then we did the musical parts together.
Cool.
And then we had then got down to recording it in 2018, and I didn't, yeah, it took a long time to release it because, I wanted to make it like a full length, but then, like pandemic was hitting and all that, and there was other things going on.
Yeah.
So what happened? So yeah, so I eventually released it and like touched it up a bit in 2018, in 2021 to like get a release out of it. And, I think it has a great concept behind it, like, how, like metaphorically speaking, like I'm the moth and, no, metaphorically speaking, I'm the flame and, the moths are the ones trying to attach you. But when they see that they're not going to get what they want out of it, they're going to burn.
Yeah.
So,
Right on. I love
so
it.
yeah, there's like a really good metaphor, I
Yeah.
guess metaphor, if that's the right word,
Yeah.
behind it. It's got a great concept behind it. And I feel that so many people, especially actors, musicians, artists, people that have gotten very successful with what they do in life, they can relate to it because, there's always just somebody that's going to come in, be a brown nose and a kiss ass.
Yeah, yeah, especially in Hollywood, and yeah, that the
Oh, Hollywood
toxicity
is
there, and yeah,
it's so common that there are people that just use people for opportunity and they have that like, opportunist and narcissistic mindset. It's so common. I mean, in the end of the day, would you work with a narcissist or not?
yeah, no, no thanks, yeah. Oh,
And it's like I can see the difference between people that are they've got a passion for what they want to do, but and like, I remember I helped one friend out because he's actually he serves in the Marine Reserves and he's a stuntman when he's not serving part-time.
oh wow,
And like one friend of mine who's very well connected in like, in like a part of the film industry, he had said to me saying, Ed, how tall are you? And I'm like, I'm about 6 foot. He's like, damn it, I need a stunt guy that's like about 5'5", 5'6". We need a stunt double for somebody. I'm like, I know the perfect guy. And like my friend, like he's this short Marine, but he's a tough guy actually. And it turned out to be like a stunt double job for the singer of a Fallout Boy in one of their music videos.
oh wow,
So, and like my friend, I'll give a shout out to him, Brent. He's a phenomenal stunt guy. But above all, he's got a very humble, genuine personality. And some of the toughest guys I know are very humble people. They don't have to prove
yeah,
anything. Same thing within the martial arts spectrum too. And so when Brent, like I said, I had texted Brent and I said, hey dude, I've got a friend, he's got a stunt opportunity for you. Hit up this guy, Mike Ferguson. He's like this big tatted muscle guy, who's like very intimidating. He's been doing a lot of independent films, like some Lionsgate stuff too, like that are independent.
oh nice,
And I got so like like the thing is the point I'm getting at is if I see people that have got that ambition, they've got a good personality, they're not the kinds of people that just try to use people for opportunity. Those are the kinds of people I go out of my way for, because like I've gone out of my way and I've moved mountains for people that weren't deserving of it. And like a piece of advice I gave people like, through statuses of recently, like don't, waste your time on people that won't move mountains for you too.
yeah, yeah. It's gotta
But yeah,
gotta be some back and forth for sure.
yeah, absolutely.
I was curious about so kind of during that whole that whole period of time, like I guess basically like 2017 to 2021, when you released several singles that
Yeah.
some of that's on the EP, but you also were doing Steelwitch, right? That was
Yes.
around 2019, like you joined Steelwitch, or you guys formed Steelwitch around that time?
Technically, Steelwitch was my early lineup of my solo band because
Oh,
I was recording throughout 2017, and ironically enough, my drummer for Steelwitch, he just moved back to Italy actually, and so it was very bittersweet to like see him go. But I met him on the set of Westworld. We were doing this battle scene where we were all like doing like a big shootout scene with explosions and gunfire. I was firing blanks, which was pretty fun. So,
nice.
yeah, but anyways, I had then gotten some recordings, and then a promoter had approached me saying they wanted me to like, do a couple of shows with them. And I was like, I don't have a lineup. And they're like, do you think maybe you could search out one? We'll put you on the bill. And then if worst comes to worst, you can't find any guys, we'll find a replacement act. I'm like, sure, I'll see what I could do. So I hit up Angelo first. I said, dude, I need a drummer. From what I've seen in your videos, you're a great drummer. It would mean the world if you could help me out. And he's like, yeah, yeah, let's do this. And then he found a guitar player, and then Steve from Paul Diano's Battle Zone and Killers introduced me to who became the bassist of Steelwitch, Teddy. And Teddy was in this notorious punk band, still is, that's been around since the 80s called Rebel Rebel. They were on the Morton Downey Jr. show.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Teddy of Rebel Rebel is the bassist of Steelwitch.
Oh, right on. I didn't
And
realize that.
yeah, and so and then Brian Becerra came involved, and then Angelo was the drummer. Brian Becerra is the guitarist of Steelwitch. And so it started off as like my first lineup of my solo band, and then we kind of decided, we should just like, turn it into a band name and all that, come up with our own stuff and all that. And and we were doing like I was doing like crazy theatrics that were, taken from acts, but done as like a tribute. I wasn't stealing like their ideas or anything. Like I was doing Blood with the Skulls because of Blackie Lawless from Wasp. Like I was doing that as a tribute to Wasp, and then like the steel bar bending, I was doing that for a bit as a tribute to Thor.
Nice.
And John Michael Thor's a friend of mine too.
All right on.
So because like I remember a couple of people were saying when they saw like a video of it on the internet saying, as if Thor hasn't done this already, and I said, this is a tribute to Thor. John Michael Thor is one of my buddies. They're like, oh, okay, just checking. I'm like,
yeah,
it's like, how people on the internet they'll be like, oh, you stole this, you stole that. It's like, no, I was doing it as a homage. So
yeah.
it's like, how people are on the internet. They can
Oh,
be, yeah. And so Steelwitch, yeah, it was becoming a very theatrical band. And then, obviously, like we were always like dealing, with like the departing of drummers and all that. Like Angelo departed for a bit, and then we had the drummer of Rebel Rebel come on board. Well, he's now the former drummer of Rebel Rebel because he moved to Nashville actually. So it's like people are always moving out of LA, and especially lately,
Yeah, it
and
seems
so
like
it's
there's a
really
mass exodus.
big time, big time. And then we got a new drummer, Phil. He's a good guy, but it's just things didn't work out with him, and we're still friends, of course. Like that's what I like is when we can depart on good terms.
Yeah.
And that's like all I'm all about. I'm always about keeping good relationships, good friendships with people, and staying in good contact with them. And then Angelo came back for a bit, and then Angelo said, I'm heading back to Italy, guys. And I was like, oh no. It's like it wasn't the part that, what hurt, I mean, it wasn't that he was leaving the band. It's like he was leaving to go back to his home country in general. And that was the part that, was sad the most. I was like, because like it's like he was one of the first people I met upon my arrival to LA. So seeing one of my friends that I met when I first got here leave was very bittersweet. And it's never easy saying goodbye.
Yeah.
So, but like Steelwitch, we did a lot of great shows. We did shows in Orange County. We did a lot of LA shows, especially in the Sunset Strip and all that. So, I mean, yeah, and Steelwitch isn't, done. Like we're gonna eventually find a new drummer. It's just, I'm getting settled with the new routine and all that. So like, but like I think eventually, I want Steelwitch to put out some new music too.
Oh, right on.
I'm gonna put out some new music with the solo band as well. It's like trying to balance two bands. It's tough as well.
Right.
And it's like because I don't want the guys in this band to feel like I'm not committing to them, and I don't want these guys to feel like I'm not committing to them as well. And so like I always try to like keep an even balance with the guys as well because they're all great guys. Like it's like it'd be like I mean trying to pick your favorite kid. You can't pick
right.
you know.
Do you I was gonna ask with between Steelwitch and your solo, do you ever struggle with like, when you're writing songs, is it, I'm gonna write a Steelwitch song or I'm gonna write a solo song, or is it I'm gonna write a song and then kind of see what it feels like or where it should go?
It's like because I gotta try to figure out, which song sounds like it would be a Steelwitch song, or which sounds like it would be a solo project song. So yeah, like sometimes like with the 2-song EP we did with Steelwitch, The Anvil, it's this very crusty, very Motorhead, new wave of British heavy metal kind of sound.
Yeah.
So that's like kind of like what we would go for. So like the Anvil and the song Steelwitch was obviously, Steelwitch, that's what that sound is that very new wave of British heavy metal, punk, heavy metal influence, I guess, as well. It's got that Motorhead influence because,
Yeah.
the new wave of British heavy metal took influence from the punk movement.
Right, right, exactly.
So, and then like, as for like, with the Dirty Deeds release and all that, I guess our sound, we are in D standard tuning and all that. And I feel that, I would say, maybe close to, almost like maybe like Demolition Priest era is kind of like a
Mm.
sound we're going for. It's like it's not too heavy, it's not too soft, but it's heavy enough because even like when I tried to get up on Metal Archives, they were saying put out another album and if it's heavy enough, we'll consider your name on there. They said I wasn't metal. So but I don't try to like label myself. There's too many subgenres in metal. Like,
Yeah.
it's people say, what kind of metal are you? I just say just traditional heavy metal, heavy metal. That's it. No, we're not too heavy, not too soft, And some people try to label me with like the hard rock genre, which isn't a bad thing because it is
Right.
a little more commercial. But like that's why like I try to like keep like a fine line of like, traditional heavy metal because it's not too heavy, not too soft. And I know that some people they're not too big on like the thrash stuff, the death metal stuff, and all that. And some people like something that's like a balance, like heavy but not too heavy as well. So I definitely want to do something like very Ripper O Priest-esque-ish. Like it's very heavy but not too heavy, I guess, and not too technical as well. Because like I love the Romans era of Priest. I think it's very overlooked and underappreciated.
Oh yeah, I agree. I totally agree with you there. Yeah, I think
Yeah.
you're right on with that. Um, I was curious about well, let's go back in time. I was really curious, how did you get started in music? Did you come from a musical family? Kind of what was the impetus for you in terms of guitar playing and singing and bass?
Yeah, it's funny because my dad played guitar as a hobby, when he was younger, actually. And what was really cool was, well, how it actually started was because of a movie, and that movie was Back to the Future,
Hmm.
and that movie made me want to get into movies and guitar playing. And actually, it opened up my world to like the rock and roll world because of Van Halen and the demo tape in the movie Out the Window.
Yeah.
And I was like, and apparently that was taken from a lost tape that was supposed to be used in a movie called, uh, what is it? The Wildlife. It was like a movie that didn't ever got re-released, but Chris Penn was in it, Eric Stoltz was in it,
Hmm.
and one kid from Weird Science was in it. Not Anthony Michael Hall, but the other kid.
Yeah.
But the Wildlife, I think it was.
Wow.
I think it was like that demo tape was because it was supposed to be for that movie, but then got used for Back to the Future.
Interesting.
And I thought that guitar sound like when he scared his dad in the 50s and all that was like the
Yeah.
coolest sounding thing. And funny at the same time. My brother and I, we would laugh at kids just watching that scene. And my brother and I, we would always impersonate George McFly just because how bumbly and he was, and like it was funny. Like we would always like repeat scenes from the movie and all that.
Yeah, it's a
And
great
and that actually was how we kind of learned some of our early curse words was because of that movie.
right on. Yeah.
And I started repeating that movie too much. But anyways, what happened was like that movie was such a big impact on me. I had wanted a DeLorean as a kid and all that. But anyways, the musical parts and the acting parts was because of that movie. And I remember when I saw Michael playing guitar in the movie, and I saw him do in the beginning, like with the Huey Lewis thing, and then the Johnny Be Good towards the end. I would always every time those scenes would come up while watching the movie, I would air guitar to it as like a 3 or 4 year old kid. And I had always wanted to play guitar. And then by the time I was like 10, my dad got me a guitar for Christmas, my very first guitar.
Cool.
And I just started self-teaching myself at first and all that. But like when I saw that in Back to the Future, I was like, I want to do that. That's what I want to do. And so anyways, I ended up learning the first, year, I taught myself, but then my parents started getting me lessons. Two of my guitar teachers, Robert Johnson and CJ Biscaglia. Robert Johnson is the brother of a martial artist named Pat Johnson, who did the fight choreography for Karate Kid, actually.
Oh wow.
It's crazy, yeah. And they're both like this is like when I was getting guitar lessons back in Buffalo, New York, when I was living there most of my life. And my other guitar teacher, we were at the same school, CJ Biscaglia. He unfortunately passed away in 2015. He was the guitarist, the original guitarist for Green Jelly. And yeah, he did the song Jump that's on the Green Jelly album.
Oh,
And yeah, he sang on that, but like he was the guitar player for like the first few albums actually.
right.
And so like I that's how I got in contact, and got to know Bill Manspeaker eventually. And he's a funny guy. I like Bill Manspeaker. He's hilarious. But anyways, so yeah, so I got lessons for about 6 years, 3 years with Robert and 3 years with CJ. And CJ ended up going on to teach at another school down the road. But he had a lot of funny stories about Hollywood and all that because he lived in LA for quite a bit, both he and his wife. And he told me about like his celebrity encounters with Slash, with Adam Sandler, and all that.
Oh,
And he told me I think when he was in line like at a grocery store, and Adam Sandler was in front of him and his wife, and he was wearing his hat like Billy Madison.
wow.
And but yeah, so but like what was really cool is that I got lessons from two great men. I'm still in contact with Robert every now and then. I think Robert is in like I don't know. I think he like moved to like Florida or something, and I think he does photography now. I'm not sure if he teaches anymore. And but anyways, so yeah, that's kind of like how the whole guitar stuff happened. And I remember of all the guitars I have, my very first guitar is long gone. I think it got demolished. I don't know what the hell I was thinking. I mean, I was an angry kid, so yeah, like, and that's a long story. And believe it or not, I'm actually writing a book because I feel that I've got a really good redemption story that I want to tell the world. So, 'cause, like,
Interesting.
I had it was very rough in my youth, and to get to where I'm at now, it's a miracle. I've had a phenomenal career in music and film, and I've managed to become a dad in the process. And I feel like I've got a good redemption story to tell. I'm not an A-list actor or a B-list actor or playing arenas and stadiums. I'm hoping one day I'll get there, and I'm sure that, with time, time will tell.
Yeah.
But I'm grateful with what I have. But anyways, so yeah, I think I demolished my first guitar because I was just reckless and stupid. And when you're young and dumb, you do stupid things.
Oh,
And
yes.
but my second guitar, I still have to this day. I've had it for almost 20 years, and it will always have such sentimental value to me because it was my late grandfather who got it for me. He was visiting New York at the time to see, me, my parents, and my brother and I. And I remember he came home with this guitar case, and I just thought, oh, it's a guitar case. I guess I kind of needed a new hard shell case. I opened it up. Sitting in there was a cherry red Epiphone SG because he knew I was a diehard AC/DC fan.
Wow, that's so cool.
And I was studying Angus Young note for note and move for move, the way he would move on stage, the way he would play. I gave my grandpa the biggest hug and I cried. And that guitar will always have a very important part in my life, even though it's kind of banged up a bit now. But like, it still sounds great. And
That's awesome.
that guitar actually helped me form a short-lived AC/DC tribute band I was in for a little bit. And I was Angus in the band. And
Yeah.
like I would do the duck walk. I would spin on the floor like a maniac, like he did.
Right on.
But I would make the hat fly off and all that. It was like yeah. So though, like my early music days, I look back and it was great. And then I eventually got a Les Paul and I did a Kiss tribute for a bit. And I was very heavily influenced by Ace Frehley as a guitar player. Same with Angus Young. So I
Nice.
eventually was in a Kiss tribute band that was also short-lived, but it was really cool, because I never forget like how it all started for me.
Yeah, that's really cool. I love that. And I know you were in the Militants at one point, right? The
Yeah.
thrash metal band, the Militants, and then after that, I
Mhm.
think you were Wolf Chamber. So
Yeah.
a few
Yeah,
bands,
the
notable
Militants, I
bands.
was doing bass, for the music videos and all that. And Charlie and I were still great friends. And because he helped with my recordings in LA actually
Hmm.
until I started to, record with the full band and all that. But I owe Charlie, the frontman of the Militants, I owe him everything because he helped kick off my recordings.
Oh,
So Yeah, so he's always got a special part in my life. And before my son was born, I was shooting in the area he lives in because a film that I'm producing and starring in, we were shooting in the area and all that. We were doing a shootout scene actually. And then I just said to him, "Hey, I'm filming not too far from you. Maybe afterwards I could come stop by and say hi. The shoot is daylight dependent." He's like, "Yeah, yeah, stop by." So I gave him his copy of the vinyl since the B-side, which is the guitar solo, The Depths of Valhalla, I recorded that at his studio. So yeah.
Nice.
But yeah, and then for Wolf Chamber was a short-lived, well, not short-lived, it was a side project that me and Dave Starr was doing. Dave Starr was in the early formation days of Laz Rocket, but then went on to be
Oh,
in
wow.
the band Vicious Rumors when they were in their prime and Carl Albert was still alive.
Nice.
And I remember like Dave actually hit me up because he saw me in Westworld and he said, "Hey, let's maybe we could do some musical collaboration together." I'm like, "Yeah, I'd be totally down. That'd be great. I'm a fan of your work. I loved what you did with Vicious Rumors." And I remember one time, like even like Vicious Rumors, like when I was at the Rainbow Bar and Grill on Sunset, they would play music videos on this big TV, and Vicious Rumors was playing. I sent a video of it to him, and he's like, "Hey, that's me." So, and yeah, because Vicious Rumors was signed with Atlantic Records. They were a lot of those. There were a lot of those bands that got signed with Atlantic Records, but Dave kind of told me like the dark side of being signed with a major label act is that if you didn't bring in the money, if you didn't sell enough records, you'd be owing money to the label and all that. And all that. It sucks because that's the biggest misconception I think that they give to musicians is that, oh, if you get signed with a big label, you're set. It's like, no, you've got to have that following that's going to be willing to pay for your music and, come to your shows and all that. You got to make that money back. So
Yeah.
that's like the dark side too, being with a major label is that they're going to be expecting that you're going to be dishing in a lot of money.
Yeah.
So what happened? So he told me like the dark side, like being with a major label like that, that they would tour, they wouldn't make enough money back to the label, and then they'd be going home empty-handed practically, and on the road for months on end, only to come home empty-handed. And it sucks because Vicious Rumor was one of those really incredible bands that was signed
Yeah.
with that. And it seems like every metal band that was signed with Atlantic back in the 80s, they don't have any good stories to say about Atlantic.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
really too bad that a lot of those there was so much talent, so many great bands, and just like you said, where they all kind of got screwed by these big record companies, and
yeah,
now you can do a fairly inexpensive recording in your own house, and
pretty
it's
much.
too bad some of those bands don't have, like, if they had that kind of technology back, just
It's just like
imagine. Yeah.
it's very rare for a new metal band to, break out and all that. The only one I could think of that really got a big break, like in the last 10 years or so, is Ghost. But yeah,
Yeah.
they're not bad. I'm not a crazy fan of Ghost. I know some people hate them, some you either love them or you hate them, but I saw them open for Maiden and they're pretty good. I'm not
Yeah.
a craze fan, I'm not like a diehard fan, but I appreciate what they do and all that, the whole theatrical stuff. I've always been a big theatrical guy.
Mm.
Like I've always loved shock rock stuff and theatrical band stuff, like like what Maiden does, and like Alice Cooper, Rob Zombie, and all those guys. But yeah, like, and I haven't seen like a new band like break out since Ghost. So I mean, it's very rare, I think, to like get to that status to where you've got that following where you'll be on the big stages and touring the
Yeah.
world. I'm sure that those guys are doing well for a living.
You're right.
Because like the
Exactly.
thing is, a lot of, I mean, being a musician, like don't expect it to be an easy ride. I mean, yeah, like if you get some great opportunities, I mean, yeah, I've had some great things happen in my career. I'm not, like I said, I'm not playing stadiums or touring. And I hope but I wouldn't be against touring down the road if the opportunity was there. But realistically speaking, it's not something I can just go home empty-handed to.
Yeah.
I'm like I said, I'm not somebody that thinks about how much can I get out of it? How much am I going to make? But I do have to think from a realistic standpoint. If I'm going to be taking my time off, and all that, I got to make sure I go home with something at least.
Yeah, yeah, you've got to make a little money. So
Yeah.
when you moved from Buffalo to Los Angeles, was that a move because of music or a move because of acting or a kind of a combo?
Well, long story short, I was born in South Florida and then I moved to Buffalo, New York when I was about to turn 5, when I was like 4 at the time. I lived there for about 17 years, and yeah, I was not happy, living in Buffalo. It's a long story as why, and a lot of it's going to be said in my book when that's not going to be for a while that I put it out, but it's going to put the whole story, like the whole tell-all. And but then when I was 21, I graduated from Erie Community College with an associate's degree in communication and media arts. And I then got accepted into Florida Atlantic University. So I went back to Florida for 3 years
Hmm.
to get my bachelor's degree in film. And while I was there, I, had, hung out with some of the guys from Yngwie Malmsteen's band, and, we recorded a couple of demos, but nothing kicked off. Even though Yngwie's guitar tech and guitar and manager for 10 years had done a show with my solo band. I
Oh,
actually flew to Buffalo to go do that for when I was going to fly to Buffalo for a show and for Christmas vacation, actually.
wow.
But so that was in 2018. But yeah, like Kenny, is like Kenny left the music biz and he working for he quit Yngwie's band, like because he said, I did my time in the industry. I'm gonna go do something new. And he got out right before COVID, so probably for the best. But now he's doing like he's got a new career and all that, and something outside of the music stuff, and he's doing well for himself. So yeah, but anyways, so like yeah, so I was in Florida for like 3 years, and we're trying to like, at least do a band while I was at college and all that. And it was hard, like college and music and all that. And then like we like Kenny and then also Ralph Ciavolino, who was in Yngwie Malmsteen's band at the time. He was the bass player. He joined in just for when Ripper was still in the band, and then he left after a couple of shows with him because he had commitments with which Dio tribute band was it? Was it Dio Disciples or Last in Line? I
I
can't
think it
remember.
was Disciples.
Disciples, yeah.
I think so.
And but yeah, Ralph and Kenny and I, we were trying to do a band. We couldn't find a drummer that could commit and all that, even though we got a couple demos recorded and all that never saw, that never surfaced, unfortunately. And but like we're still all good friends, but we still keep in contact and all that. But yeah, and then after I graduated from Florida Atlantic University with a bachelor's in film, like I had said to myself, I don't know what I'm gonna do next. Like my best friend had asked me, my best friend Kellen had actually asked me, do you know what you're gonna do after you graduate, man? I'm like, dude, I don't have a fucking clue. And I was working as a bouncer at the time. And so while I was attending FAU, and I also had worked as a lifeguard when I was in Florida too. So
Wow.
I, yeah, I, yeah, definitely a lot of funny stories with working as a bouncer. So
I'm sure.
yeah, but anyway, so what happened was I put in my 2 weeks there, and like my friend had said, well, no, like before I put in my 2 weeks, but like in March of like 2017, my friend had asked me, he's like, dude, I'm gonna go to LA for the summer. Want to come with me and see what you think and give it a try? I'm like, okay. So like in May, I had put my 2 weeks in at that bar I was working at, and then I then had gone back to New York for a couple of weeks because my best friend was living in Buffalo at the time, and we traveled cross country to LA, and I brought all the stuff I could with me, my guitar, my amp, and a couple of suitcases, and then we arrived in LA, and I just slowly started to work my way up there, and then I said, you know what, I'll stay. He went back for a year to finish school, and then I stayed in LA. I was all on my own, so it was kind of scary. Yeah, I had some friends out there, but it was like I was a fresh face. I didn't know many people, but
Right.
I was always good at making friends. So that was good to happen along the way and all that. And then yeah, just like that, because I thought to myself, why not give it a try? And I asked Kenny, who was involved with Ingve at the time. I asked him, dude, what would you think about me going to LA? He said, dude, go for it, because if you don't, you're gonna have that what if in the back of your mind. And I look back on the last 6 years and just imagine everything I would have missed out on. I would have missed out on so much, and I've done so much in a matter of 6 years.
Yeah, you have. Yeah, you have. That's for sure. That's so cool.
Yeah, I mean, from doing TV shows like Westworld to The Mandalorian and doing movies, getting to work with a lot of, people that I grew up, watching and admiring on TV, film, and music and all that. amazing. Like I'm really grateful for what I have. But yeah, like that was how it kind of led for me going to LA, was just, taking that leap of faith.
That's great. I need to go back and rewatch Westworld now because
Yeah.
yeah, I'm
Season
trying to
season
picture you.
one,
Trying to, is it the first season, right?
season
Oh,
two,
season
episode
two. Okay,
three.
season.
It was the big Confederado fort battle, and there's like a shot, like they glued a mustache on my face actually. But my hair was like down to here at the time. It's now just like up to here and all that. But like it was, oh my God, working on that set was, I've got stories to tell. My drummer Angelo, he almost got into a fight with somebody on that set. This guy, there was just an unruly guy in this production that was messing with girls, harassing girls. And this was before that whole Me Too movement had happened,
Uh,
actually. And the guy, was just like out of line, and then he got kicked out of the production and all that. And it's like, good God. But I've got some great stories I can tell about that. But like, we were running through explosions, gunfire, and all that stuff. And I remember just like shit was like blowing up, like flying at me. And it was like I was covered, my face was covered in ash and all that. Like they went to the extents to make it as realistic as possible of a battle scene. And what happened was, I remember during the shoot, because like there's like one part I'm up on the top of like the fort, and then I somehow make my way down to the field, and I come up with like a theory of how that happened and how I managed to live through it, because apparently I'm held up at gunpoint and I'm shot in the leg and all that. So I've got a theory of how, because like a bunch of us all got shot down and killed. So I have like a theory of how that happened, that we just they added like an injured leg to make it believable as to how I went from there to there and then to being held at gunpoint.
oh wow.
Oh, it was really cool. But like I remember when we were like in the field doing all that stuff, and they were blowing shit up, like, like in front of us and all that. I remember a combination of sunscreen, ash, and sweat got into my eyes.
Oh,
Like I just dropped my gun and I was just kind of like in pain. I was like, fuck, fuck. And they're like, all the other guys, including the stunt guys around me, they're like, you okay, dude? I'm like, dude, I can't fucking see. Some of this shit got into my eyes. And they were like screaming, like, medic. They were screaming for the medic. They're like, we need a medic. And then I couldn't see, and they were like guiding me to a chair, and they put my head back and they were putting like eye drops in, and I was like, damn. And they were like, and they were about to go in for the next take, and they were like, can you go in? And I'm like, yeah. And like I grabbed I grabbed the prop gun I had, and then I ran back in and all that. And
man.
it's like I was shooting blanks in the show too, but like that was like but that was like until later on, until they needed me for like the top of the fort. They were separate. It was very all over the place with filming stuff. Like they were filming the fort, top of the fort stuff separately, and I had to replace somebody that didn't show up.
Oh man.
So what happened was, like there was like, I think we were like a week into shooting, and the director had said, we need all the Confederado soldiers with long hair. And like my hair was like down to here at the time. And I was like the very last one to walk in. And the director saw me and he handpicked me and he said, we're gonna use you. And I'm like, okay. And then he was like, we're gonna have you standing next to James Marsden, who, I was a fan of his work because of the X-Men growing up.
Yeah.
So that was really cool. And like I got formally introduced to him and all that, which was really cool. Same, I got formally introduced to him, Jonathan Tucker, and Evan Rachel Wood, because they were in that area. They were so cool to work with.
Nice.
And so the they then had asked me, do you have any experience with a firearm by any chance? I said, yes, I do. I come from a family background in military and law enforcement. They're like, okay, great. Have you ever fired blanks? I'm like, no, just live rounds, actually. They're like, okay, then we're just gonna put you through this quick training session real quick. And they were very strict, because like, very recently with the whole incident with the Alec Baldwin thing,
Yeah.
it's like they like big budget movie productions, like, they're always very, like very, strict about safety, especially ever since the Brandon Lee incident happened.
Yeah.
So like they specifically said, you're going to fire out into this field at absolutely nothing. And even when you run out of blanks, you just keep firing and all that. And then when the director yells cut, you put the gun up against the wall and do not touch it. I'm like, okay. They were very strict about, the guns and all that, especially when they were firing blanks too. Because like the explosions in the show were practical effects. They weren't CGI. They were blowing shit up in that
Right.
show.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's what I like practical effects. I'm not a fan of CGI. In fact, I think CGI is garbage. You ask me, I'm a big fan of practical effects, but if you can use CGI gunfire that looks authentic and real, then power to you. Because like some people use very cheap CGI and it just doesn't look good.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, so like I'm like Tarantino. I love practical effects. I'm not a fan of CGI. And so working on that set was just, insane. But I remember I got formally introduced to James, and then he had said to me, okay, and James directed me, which was pretty cool.
Oh, nice.
And James has said, so you're going to look out into this field, and when I start firing my gun, you're going to fire with me. I'm like, okay. He's like, if you have any questions, just don't hesitate to ask me. I'm like, okay, yeah, thank you. And I remember right after we finished that shot, like in that part of the scene, like I said, James, thanks. Thank you so much. He's like, yeah, no problem. He's like, you did great. And just to like even me being a fresh face into the film industry and for an A-lister like him to
Yeah.
compliment me like that, it's just like it was like a huge confidence booster. And like one other guy on the set, he said, dude, embrace that. You just got complimented by a big name actor. That's big. I'm like,
That's very
yeah.
cool. That's a
Yeah,
great
so it
experience.
was I made a lot of good friends on that set, and one of them actually I very recently reunited with. We were doing a Star Wars signing. He became one of the Mandalorians in season 3,
Oh,
actually.
okay.
So it was pretty. It's almost like it was full circle in a way.
Yeah, that's great. I love that.
Yeah,
What Mandalorian episode were you in?
I
Or
was in season 1, episode 4, right when it was at the height of like its start, and it was a big deal. And I remember when I like same thing like with Westworld when I posted that on social media, everybody because I wasn't wearing a mask, my face is shown in the show, and when
Mm,
people saw me, they were like, "Dude, I thought that was you."
that's cool.
It was great, and it was and working on that was so much fun too. Like they were very secretive about this. So how I got this was it was before I had an agent, actually. I was self-submitting myself for work. I was my own agent practically.
Mm,
So I submitted to a call that was saying, they needed farmer types that yeah, they said that they needed farmer types for a costume fitting, working multiple shoot days throughout January 2019, and isn't afraid to get to do very physically demanding stuff. And to some extent it was stunt work because they were blowing stuff up around us just like in Westworld and all that, and they were having us, shooting, blasters and all that, which was cool.
yeah.
And but anyways, so what happened was they didn't tell us what it was for. Like they were very secretive about this. They had a code name for the show, and then when I said, "Yeah, I'm available" and all that, they then said you're booked on the show titled Huckleberry. And so I just assumed it's probably some show about a farm, but okay. So I get to Manhattan Beach Studios, and just as I arrive, I see Lucasfilm on the side of the truck, and I was like, "Holy shit!" And so I thought it was either one Indiana Jones related or two Star Wars related. So
Yeah.
I go in and they said, "We're very secretive about this show, so we have to take your phone." I'm like, "Oh shit!" So yeah, they aren't messing around with this. Whenever they take your phone or like they put, they make sure that you have something on your phone to block the camera. It means that that this is a very big deal.
Yeah.
They so when I went in and I went in for my costume fitting, they had to fit me in a wetsuit because some of us were standing in water too. And what happened was like they had asked me, like the costume people had asked me, you know what this is for, right? And I'm like, I got an idea. I think they're like, this is for a new Star Wars TV series that's going to be on Disney's new streaming platform. And this is before like, Disney Plus was like even announced
Wow.
and all that. Like they were very secretive about all this. And Disney was very hardcore saying you are to not leak anything or reveal anything. And if you do, this and this will happen. And they go as far as to filing lawsuits if you leak anything that's confidential. So
Yeah.
when you sign non-disclosure agreements, that they are very on you, like they're very like on your ass about, not leaking anything.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm sure.
So So what happened was, after I finished my fitting, they fit me in my costume and all that, and they also made hair extensions for me too. So because my hair was like back up to here at that point, and just as I was about to like leave my fitting, I met Carl Weathers at my fitting, and I don't know, I said to him, I was like, Carl, and he's like, yes, and I was like, you're Carl Weathers, right? He's like, yes, I am. I'm like, no, no, I'm a huge fan of your work. I grew up watching you in Predator, Rocky, and Action Jackson. And when I told him Action Jackson, he said, my man. And he shook my hand.
Yeah,
He's like, I don't think many people ask him about Action Jackson.
I'm sure they don't. Yeah.
Today it's probably just Mandalorian, Rocky, Predator, and Happy Gilmore. So
Yeah, yeah.
so I had told him when I told him Action Jackson, because I grew up watching a lot of action movies as a kid, and like he had said to me, "Are you involved in the show?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'm working on episode 4 apparently." He's like, "Oh, I'm not in that episode, but you're gonna have a lot of fun with this." And it's been a blast so far. I'm like, "Well, anyways, I hope I get a chance to work with you maybe down the road." He's like, "You never know. You never know. Nice to meet you." And then we shook hands and then went our separate ways. I couldn't get a picture, for obvious reasons, which was
Right.
unfortunate, but he was so nice. And, and like I said, I was a big action movie fan growing up. So getting to meet him was really cool. And,
That is very cool.
it's freaking Apollo Creed.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's awesome.
So,
I love that you I love the fact that you mentioned Action Jackson. You
oh,
know,
dude, like, and I
I
had
love that
friends.
movie too.
Yeah, and I had friends that worked on that movie many years ago. One of my friends met Vanity long before she passed away, and my friend told me that she was such a sweetheart and all that, and it's really unfortunate, she died so young too, only in
Yeah,
her,
she did.
I don't even think she made it to 60 actually.
Yeah, I don't think so. Yeah, she was fairly young.
Oh yeah, yeah, and I know she left the industry like in like the 90s as well, and she became, a religious person and all that, which, I don't judge people if they do decide to do that. That's whatever. If people leave the industry, then, it's their choice. I
Yeah.
mean, some people leave it because, they don't like what's going on. And, there is some stuff that goes on in the industry that is kind of, shady and all that. So I don't blame most people and all that. But going back to The Mandalorian, so when we started filming, a lot of people always ask, was Pedro Pascal there and all that? I said, dude, I never saw him once. And the two main guys playing the Mandalorian are Brendan Wayne and Lateef Crowder. Brendan Wayne doing all the gunslinging stuff, and all the body acting mainly of the Mandalorian. He is the grandson of John Wayne, actually.
Oh, I did not know that.
Yeah. And Lateef Crowder he's a martial artist. He does like capoeira and all that. He's done stunts for like Batman versus Superman. He was in like the Twilight movies and all that. But they they've got their two guys have got such great resumes and great reputations. And the working on set with both of them was really cool. And I remember there were shots of me in the episode of Mandalorian that got cut because somebody that was standing with me, Gina, and Lateef when Lateef was in the Mandalorian suit. Because what happened was this other person that was involved in the shoot that was standing with us just decided to not show up anymore on like an unprofessional. And that's the thing, you do things like that. Good luck getting work again.
Yeah, no
'Cause the
kidding.
thing is, if they see that you're unreliable, uncommitted, and all that, like you won't make it far in the industry because commitment is key, especially for a shoot because continuity as well.
Right. Yeah,
So
exactly.
like what happened was, but like what was really cool was, Gina Carano and I, she and I, we were talking like we were best buds. Like what I liked about her was, she didn't act like she was like this high and mighty Hollywood star. And this was before the whole thing happened where she got let go from Disney and all that. But I've got nothing bad to say about her. And even like other actors in the production have said she was so sweet to work with. She was cool. She was down to earth. And, and yeah, like, people are entitled to believe what they want to believe, and all that. And, I don't judge people based on their beliefs and all that. And I judge them based on how they treat people. And she treated people with respect. And that's what I liked about her was she was just so cool and down to earth and like cracking jokes on set. And then I even asked her about, her career in professional fighting, and she was humble about it and all that.
Hmm.
because me, I'm a martial artist as well, and she was a martial artist, and so was Latif. So they were all really cool about it. And I know Brendan's very cool, and very humble about talking about his grandpa and all that as well. But no, everybody in that shoe was great. And then Bryce Dallas Howard was directing, and she was such a sweetheart as well. And and it's funny because in the one of the shots with me is Bryce's kids actually.
Oh,
So I remember like when we were just waiting to roll filming, Bright, like me and Gina, we were just saying like, we were talking about Bryce because she was directing. I said, I got to give it to Bryce Dallas Howard, very hard worker, especially considering she ran throughout all of Jurassic World in high heels. Like that's gotta be painful. And I remember one of her kids was saying, yeah, she said that she regretted that. But she was proud of being able to do it actually.
I'm
So
sure.
yeah. So but no, like everybody involved in that shoot was great, and I remember there was another clip that didn't make it into the final edit. I still got some great shots out of it, especially with me holding a blaster and shooting it. Like that was like my one shot I was hoping would make it into the final edit. But there was one was when in the beginning of the episode we were getting shot at by the ATST, the thing that walks on two legs.
Right.
And there was a shot, and funny enough, the same guy that did the explosions in Mandalorian is the same guy that was doing the explosions in Westworld.
Oh, really?
And so I was like, yeah, I did the Confederado 14. He's like, oh yeah, I blew up all that stuff. I'm like, yeah, you blew up some stuff near me a couple times.
Yeah.
And he did it again too.
Yeah.
So,
Hopefully you
so
didn't
what
get
happened?
any ash in your eye this time.
No, no, thank God I didn't. But like, what happened was there was a part where I had to run past the main actress because she's running to go save her daughter in the shot. But there was a shot that they got on footage where I slipped and fell into one of the ponds where one of the explosion charges was.
Oh,
And I wasn't acting. I was panicking getting out of there because I knew it was in there. And Alan, the guy, the explosion effects artist, blows it up right behind me, and I'm actually acting naturally to it. And I just remember like we watched the playback of that, and I was like, "Holy shit!" I said, "If they don't use that, I'll be really upset." But yeah, they didn't use it, but at the end of the day, still some great footage out of it, and most of all, just overall a great experience doing it.
yeah, that's good. I love that show. I now I have to go back and rewatch that episode as well because I
Yeah,
totally
I was clean
remember the
shaved.
episode.
Yeah, I was clean shaved in that one, so I didn't have that. And I've got like these long hair extension things as well. But getting
How
to just shoot a
weird.
blaster was so cool. And like they set up squibs to make it look like we were hitting the target. They would give you like squib one, squib two. And so, for example, I was squib one. And when they would say action, they would say, okay, one. And then I'd pretend to like shoot the blaster and the squib would go off.
Oh, nice.
It was
That's
so
cool.
cool.
Ah,
It
that
was
would be a blast. That sounds really
Oh,
cool.
dude, I had the time of my life, and I remember the final shooting date. And what's cool about The Mandalorian is this is the show that got me eligible to join SAG-AFTRA, the union for actors.
Hmm.
Like any actor you think of, is most likely a member of SAG. Like
Yeah.
especially the big name actors too. But anyways, the final shoot date, we were doing like we hit what's called the golden hour, which is like a 16-hour workday, and you get paid a lot more like for that. And like they paid us a lot of money regardless because they had to give us hazard pay too because of, the dangerous, explosions and all that too. And some shots, believe it or not, I actually had to have a stunt double, believe it or not, who was actually a woman that was half my size.
Oh, really?
They were in the pit anyways, so you couldn't really tell a difference with the height, and they were very quick shots too. But so like we were filming till like call time was like 2 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and then we didn't get out till like 7 or 8 o'clock the next day, and it sucked because I had to be at NAM the next day, the NAM convention in Anaheim, so I didn't have any sleep actually,
Yeah.
like throughout the convention, and even everybody was seeing like I was like half asleep standing up at the convention and
Man,
all that. But yeah, in retrospect, it was such a fun shoot.
that's really cool. I love that. And it's funny too, just the tie-in too with the with music and acting. The fact that you went from doing the Mandalorian to going to Nam the next day. That's
Yeah,
cool. That kind of
it's
definitive
funny.
of who you are.
It's funny because Eli, he's a musician. He was in the band Huntress before what's her name, unfortunately, passed
Oh,
away.
yeah.
Jill, yeah,
Yeah, Jill.
Jill Janis, and then and I feel bad if I get the name wrong, but yeah, like Eli, who was the guitarist of Huntress, was one of the Native Americans in Westworld season 2 as well.
Oh, I did not know that.
And yeah, so like it was pretty cool. And every time I would see Eli, in public or at shows or something, I'd be like, "Hey, what's up, man?" Like, it's crazy how like heavy metal can tie into the film industry just like that. So yeah,
Yeah, that is great. I love that. Um, well, Ed, this has been an absolute pleasure chatting with you this evening. I've had a blast chatting with you about your music and working in the film industry. This is fascinating. So for everybody watching, if you look in the description below, there are links to Ed's Facebook page as well as websites. You can check out definitely check out his solo work as well as his band Steelwitch. Killer stuff, especially if you're a metalhead, if you're a into heavy shit, you're gonna love it. If you have not heard the cover of AC/DC's Dirty Deeds Done Dirt Cheap, definitely check that out because it kills, especially with the late great Steve Grimmett and the awesome John Gallagher of Raven. It's such cool stuff. So again, Ed, thank you so much for chatting with me. This has
oh,
been a
dude, thank you
blast.
for having me. I love doing these things, and I love getting to tell these stories. I have fun doing it, man. So thank you
Awesome.
for having me.
Excellent.